Hi everyone! In this video I'll show you how to get your napkins ready for decoupaging shells. Let's talk about napkins. In my opinion, it's harder to decoupage a darker colored napkin than a lighter one. I find that darker colors tend to show more wrinkles, while lighter napkins don't show them as much. When you are decoupaging with white background napkins, keep in mind that once you remove the top layer, the napkin becomes see-through. That's why it's important to prep your shell and paint it white. Since the napkin is transparent, you don't want any dark spots showing through from underneath. Also, another thing to consider is whether you want to apply the whole napkin or just pieces of it. With designs like this, you can cut out individual sections, and it's usually easier to decoupage smaller pieces than trying to apply the entire napkin to the shell. If you use the whole napkin, you will need to think about where the wrinkles might show and how to minimize them. The size of the napkin is important as well. Here I have the same design in both regular size and cocktail size. The regular napkins work better for larger shells, while the cocktail-sized napkins are better suited for smaller shells. All these things need to be taken into consideration when choosing the right napkin for your shell. Now let's talk about where to find napkins. Great options are stores like Home Goods, TJ Maxx, or Marshalls. Out of all three, Home Goods usually has the best selection of napkins. But if you prefer online shopping, Amazon has a ton of options to choose from. And if you don't need a whole pack of napkins, you can always check Etsy. There are several sellers who offer smaller quantities. And here is a little tip. Seasonal or holiday napkins are much easier to find at certain times of the year. So if you see a design you love, grab it when you can, because it might not be there next time. Next, I'll show you how to separate the layers of a napkin. Each napkin has 2 or 3 layers, but in most cases it's 3. For decoupaging, we only need the very top layer. I'll show you 3 different ways how to separate them. The first method is if you don't want to get up for any tools, but have a lot of patience and good eyes. You can try separating the layers with just your fingers. Sometimes they come apart easily, but most of the time it's a bit of a struggle. The second option is to use painter's tape, which makes separating the layers a bit easier. Start by grabbing a piece of tape and pressing it gently onto the bottom layer of the napkin. Then carefully lift that layer off. Once the bottom layer is removed, repeat the same process with the middle layer using the painter's tape. The third option is the messiest but also the easiest. Grab your Mod Podge and apply a small amount to your fingers to make them slightly tacky. Then gently tap the napkin with your fingers and the layers will start to separate. It's that simple. Try all 3 methods and see which one works best for you. Lastly, we'll discuss how to cut out the individual sections of the napkins if you don't want to use the whole napkin. The first method is to use scissors. I like to start by roughly cutting out the design, then tracing around it to get as close to the edges as possible. This helps eliminate any sharp edges. Usually, I prefer to cut out the design first and separate the layers afterward. In this case though, I already had the layers separated, so I'm doing it a bit differently. I find the napkin is less flimsy and easier to handle when the layers aren't separated beforehand. The next three options are very similar, and they all tend to leave frayed edges, which helps the design blend in better. The first option is to simply tear out the design with your hands. This method works best when there is enough white space around the images. If the images are closer together and you don't want to waste any, using scissors would give you a more precise cut. The next option is to use a watercolor pen. Simply draw around the image with the pen, wetting the napkin slightly, and then tear it out. Just like the previous method, this will leave frayed edges, which helps the design blend in more naturally on your shell. The last option is a more budget-friendly version of the previous method. Instead of using a watercolor pen, just grab some water and a small brush. Like before, draw around the image to wet the napkin and then carefully tear it out. This method also creates frayed edges, helping the design blend in naturally on your shell. Try all of the methods and see which one works best for you. If you found something useful in this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. I'll see you in the next episode, where I'll show you how to apply the napkins to the shells.